And your host, Greg Cardone.
Welcome and welcome back to the hot seat. I'm your host, Greg Cardone, and today we have another amazing guest all the way from San Antonio, KeeKee Suki. Oh man, welcome. This is great. I love you and everybody from San Antonio. You're a great bunch of people.
Well, thank you for having me, and
I,
I appreciate it. San Antonio is an amazing city. If you've never been here, you should definitely try to come out. We're about to walk into Fiesta right now. We just came out of the rodeo, and Fiesta is like a whole week of just partying here.
I loved it. It was great, very historic. The Alamo, Sam Houston. I learned so much just being there for a week than I did probably all the time in school. And I'll tell you, I am so happy that I meeting you for the first time. We're Facebook friends, and I think that's great. Yeah, my pleasure. JJ Fernandez, who's a runaround buddy of yours who helped get you set up this show. Marcus
Absolutely.
Davila, Salvatore, and his motorcycle club. I want those guys, and I'll keep mentioning them until I get them on the air. But I've never met a bunch of people, because not everybody there is an actor, who are all about wanting to promote themselves and be on the show and talk about what they do. What is it about everybody in San Antonio that, they're all about promotion?
San Antonio is full of vibrancy. It's full of color. It's full of tradition. San Antonio is always been my second home. Originally, I'm from the Garden Isle of Kauai. My dad's Hawaiian, Japanese. My mom is Cherokee, Irish, French. And I moved here when I was a kid, so I was back and forth between Hawaii and San Antonio. But San Antonio is as they say, pura vida, which is just life. It's the purity of the life and the heart of the city. This city has always been a melting pot. It's not I would say this has probably been the most unracist city I've ever lived in. And what I mean by that is there's so many diversity here that you can't be racist. Like you just can't. There's too many variety of people. So if you come to a city like this where it's a melting pot, you just have to exist. And it's definitely gave me the opportunity to become more of a human being instead of it trying to be divisible, and it allows me to not just be the actor that I am, but to really take my acting to an artistry to where I can share it with everybody.
That is awesome. I've never heard anybody talk about their city like that before. Oh, that's great. Not being racist. I was there. I thought everybody was great. I loved being in San Antonio, and I was in El Paso. Um, El Paso really wasn't what everybody makes it seem to be, or at least where I was. There's a lot of things that go on in a lot of these cities that when you're there, you don't see,
Yes.
But I did see an unbelievably good side of, San Antonio. I liked it. And the people were nice. Walking in the street or walking down, people saying hello down by, riverfront and going out to eat. I'm looking behind you,
Okay.
and it's that Mr. Marbles. And I was like, well, where did I hear that name? So tell me where I heard
Okay.
about
So
Mr.
Mr. Marvel
Marbles.
is an infinite tale that most people don't know, and I've I've given. So I directed this film called Mr. Marbles. We just finished it. We're finishing up our editing right now. Then we're going to work on our soundtrack and get the sound. I'm hoping for October 31st release. But I'm an old fan of old school horror, not the gory stuff that we see today, not the brutal stuff that we see today, but the Twilight Zone, the Tales from the Crypt, the you know Tales from the Dark Side stuff. So I wanted to create a film that that touched on topics of today that are kind of like you're not supposed to touch, which is slavery. And I wanted to create a film that would bring back the old style of filmmaking that would allow the new generation to enjoy it. So I broke it into three small films, and they all connect together into one full film. So the backstory of Mr. Marbles: Mr. Marbles was a slave doll. You can see him up here that way, but he was a slave doll that the slave owner um, had basically had two run-ins with slaves. One of them killed his brother. Then the other one was basically a little too friendly to his daughter, so he ended up killing him and making his wife taking the hay that he was killed on and basically creating a doll to show the other slaves not to ever cross the owner again. So
Wow.
she basically hexed the doll with the hoodoo hex, and the doll comes back to life and kills the family of the former slave owners.
Wow. I can't wait to see it. Yeah. And that's a little bit different. And that's what we had talked about before we came on the air about making movies or films that are different, where just you can't copycat the same film 10 times and just put different people in it, because it's still the same film, the same story, kind of like Total Recall.
Yes.
When I watched Total Recall, all I did in my mind was visualize the original Arnold Schwarzenegger Total Recall. So watching that movie, it distracted me from watching the current movie, because all I did is think about the last movie, knowing what was going to happen in the new movie.
Yes. The one with Colin Farrell, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So make something different. And that
Well, I just went through the exact experience that you did, but when I walked into it, I was like, I'm not going to judge this by the old original movie because there's no way they're going to be able to replicate it. And I just watched Roadhouse.
Oh, I didn't see the new one.
Yes. So
Don't.
it, so we've created a new star actor,
Conor McGregor.
just like Dwayne Johnston, John Cena, uh, Keanu Reeves, and no knocking anybody's artistry. Everybody has their own style, but I feel as an actor, as a true actor, and I feel I'm more a character actor. You have to change your character. You have to be able to change with when that writer is writing that role. You cannot be. I can't be my normal self. I can't be KeeKee Suki when I'm playing the role of right now we're doing a film called Dog's Life, and my character is Tony. Well, Tony is nothing like KeeKee Suki. I would never act that way as KeeKee Suki. So I feel as an actor, I've always looked at people like Leonardo DiCaprio when he did What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and compare that to any of the other films that he's done in recent times. There's no comparison. He's a completely different person.
That is exactly correct. And he is, and I'm really glad you brought him up, because I couldn't think of anybody you know the film. But while you were talking, I was actually trying to figure out like him into Titanic and something in the Killing Fields, which I was like, I had no idea what that movie was about. And I watched it, and I'm amazed. Uh, what was that? Oh man, I'm drawing a blank. In Hollywood, that movie he did with Brad Pitt.
Oh,
Uh,
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you know, you could watch him and not get tired of him going, oh, he's Jim Carrey. And Jim Carrey is pretty much the same in every movie.
Yes.
I think he's funny. Just what he does. I love that one parody that he does of Vanilla Ice,
Yeah.
and he's
But I will
dancing.
say this about I will give Jim Carrey credit because if you judge Jim Carrey by Ace Ventura
Oh, no.
to Liar Liar, they are two different characters. And I
Yes.
don't see Jim Carrey in those characters. And the reason why I say that is because I honestly feel in those two roles he kind of took his comedy in two different directions.
Yes. I didn't even think of Liar Liar. That was but but that's where a lot of people
Yeah.
some of these actors just get totally stereotyped, and you're like, okay, it's another one of these movies. Okay,
Yes.
but hey, those guys make way more.
Take it. One of those franchises that's very much
Yeah,
so like
and they make way more money than I do. So I just so they, you know what? Maybe I should be stereotyped in in more roles, but I've done roles that were totally, a
But that's the
dichotomy.
thing too is like it depends on as the actor and what he wants for himself. And that's great. I just for me, I want to be the chameleon. I want to be able to get on every single film set that I do. I want to be able to look back at my film work and be like, I was a different character in every project that I did, and I did my absolute best to try to bring and hone a new character for each role. And it's a hard thing to do. It really is.
And that's a key. And that definitely is a key where you can look at it and go, wow, I was not the same person. And in some of the movies I've done some, like say, I do way more commercials than I do film. But in several that I've done, that was you, but you were this guy in here, and I didn't even know. I couldn't even tell that was you.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point. Not to know it's me and not being the same person, because they're like, well, those are two. How did you? I put myself in that role. It took
Yeah.
me, I put myself in that role, and it was great on that. We were talking a little bit about, and this might coincide, being an actor versus an artiste.
Okay.
Explain that. That was pretty interesting when you touched on it.
So I'm a firm believer as an actor. A lot of actors tend to find a circle that they're comfortable with, and then they kind of stick to that group of people and only work with those people. But myself as an artist, I want to work with everybody. And as an actor, I feel being an actor, you're taking your acting as serious as you can. So you're creating an artistry out of it. It's taking and honing that craft and building that into its own personality, its own persona. So I want to share that with the world. So the only way I'm going to be able to do that is to be able to work with everybody. I don't want to be to where it's like, oh, well, I don't like you and I'm not going to work with you. Well, that just doesn't, that's not business savvy. That's not professional. And the only way that you're going to kind of like polish yourself as not just as a businessman, but as an actual artist, as an actor, is being versatile, being able to work with any situation, whether if it's a good situation or a bad situation, you still got to be professional. And at the end of the day, professionalism is what's going to carry you through the moment.
Do you see or find that with some of the people you know that work with the same people, they just get locked into what they do and really never look to expand their horizons or go any further, or they get too comfortable or complacent? Oh, every weekend I'm going to shoot a film with these same people, which I think is great. Again, and I'm going to tell you, I think that you should shoot as much film as you can with as many different people. But if you only work with the same people, you're only going to kind of be here. And I always thought, when you work with, same thing with playing any sports or training, whatever you play, anything, you always want to play with the better person because you will only get better doing it. And it's the same thing with acting. If
Yes.
you act with people who are, there are people who are way more experienced than I am, but if you can grasp them and pull yourself to their level, they will drag you, not physically, into being a better actor. To
Absolutely.
where, how long you been doing this? Well, this is my first film. No, that happened to me one time. They're like, how long you been acting? I was like, this was when I started 5 years ago. I said, this is actually my first film, but I was in TV, so I
Yeah.
understood the whole thing. I had a little I was on this side, not that
Yeah.
side. So to bring yourself up to the level and get drawn to them, and I would say you need to feel emotion from people. Otherwise, it's like, wow, I feel like dead fish here. If you're just all it feels like is you're reading lines. How do I come back? Well, all I
Yeah.
do is read lines. How can I bring myself or put myself over that? And that's something that new actors, and that's something that we'll talk. Well, let's talk about it now. Usually we talk about the end of the show, but since we're talking about it, what kind of advice would you give to new actors?
Okay. Let me answer the first question first. So first question first, as when you're coming up in the business, when you're coming up in the industry, if you stay working with one person, one individual, it's basically like staying in first grade and repeating first grade over and over and over again. And it's no offense to the person you're working with, they could be the best person in the world, but the only way you're going to grow as an actor, and this is from living experience and working on several different film sets and several different film directors, is by having as much knowledge at your convenience as possible. And the only way you're going to have that knowledge is by working with people that have worked in different worlds and different people and different actors and different experiences, and being able to be around those people. And I love the backstory you told on, when we get into certain aspects and certain retrospects, you get to this stagnativity of yourself, and it's just like a complacency. And I think that's where a lot of actors will fall off, and they get bored with the craft of it because they're not learning. There's nothing new bringing them to that next level. There's nothing that's guiding them to make them basically fight to stay in the game. um, when you're a new actor, the biggest mistake that I feel that I made was I did not have a business strategy put together before I even started acting. Um, and most people are going to be like, "What do you mean business strategy?" Well, business strategy means that my image of who I was as an actor was already created. So the format when I went into the film industry wasn't trying to climb the ladder of, "Oh, let me do a little bit of extra work, learn behind the scenes what it's like to do the things." I did no legwork. I came into the business blind, and I wanted to try to walk in with a flashlight and trying to shine the spotlight on myself, and it's never going to work that way. I feel as a new actor, when you come in, you should have already you should already have done your homework. You need to know who the film directors are in your community. You need to know what schools are teaching so you can have access to the people that you might use for your productions. You should be looking at who's making the most money as an actor in San Antonio, trying to network with those people, trying to get to building your own little network. And then once you've kind of established that, and then you have your comp cards and your resume set up and your headshots and all that, then you start going to your acting classes, then you start polishing who you are as an entertainer, and then you start promoting yourself. And if I would have done all that when I first started, instead of kind of jumping in, I think that it would have allowed me to start my career trying to seek lead roles instead of just going as a background extra, climbing the ladder, day player. Oh, now I'm one of the principal cast, and now I'm a co-star looking for lead roles. If I would have done that work, this would have been a whole nother ball game.
I couldn't have said it any better myself, man. We're on the same frequency, man. You know, I I try to explain to people the business side. And again, if you've watched my show, it's called Show Business, not Show
Absolutely.
Hobby. And again, if you're doing it for fun and S&Gs, have at it. I will never tell you, well, I'm doing something. And yeah, it sounds great. I'd like to be a part of it, but I'm not traveling 2 hours. But anything in Tampa, I have some friends that are working. That we're involved in Grinders. Little plug there. April 5th on Amazon. And, he's going to start doing his own little side gigs and shorts. And, he tells me the scripts and goes through them. And I'm laughing. They're funny. I said, this is going to be fun. As long as what you're doing is fun,
Yeah.
that's all that counts. That's number one. Are you having fun? Yes. Sometimes the money is not always the end result of it. If I'm going to have fun and we're going to laugh and maybe eventually something comes out of it, I'm happy with that. So, but what you said about that and to look at it, yes, you have to have a little bit of a mindset on where am I going with this? Do I just want to be BG background?
Yeah. Well, that's the
you
thing, right?
know,
You have to have your own pitch deck for yourself.
if that's what and people like I'm always a background. I'm always a background. Well, in that case, then you need.
Stop pitching yourself as a background.
I thought it. You said it. You need to take. This is great. I love it. You need to take a whole look at yourself, and my minor league. Well, you got to start somewhere. There's no doubt about it. You have to start somewhere, but those are the times when you need to get involved and look on Facebook and join all these groups. And there's a million casting groups out there. And that's what I do. I look at these castings and I submit. If it's local, just to keep me busy and to keep me in front of the camera,
Yeah, keep that iron hot.
I submit to them. I don't care. I'll be somebody's grandpa. I could be somebody's uncle. I'm working on, I use a touch of gray. Maybe I use a touch too much. Or maybe I like that. I like the salt pepper. I've gone beyond this.
I've never grown a beard before. We're doing a film called Dog's Life right now by Not So Sane Entertainment. If you've never seen any films by Not So Sane Entertainment, I highly advise it. There's He's got several films on Tubi right now. Really, really good quality
We'll
films.
post. We're going to post some links, and we're going to post some video of you at the end of the show. I've changed the format where I used to go and let's take a look at it. It totally disrupts the feeling, you know.
No,
So
no
at
problem.
the end, I run credits, and I'm going to run all the graphics and your clips in here. So I tell people stay tuned at the end of the show because it's like going to the movie and everybody runs out and then they run this 5 minute end trailer that wow.
Yeah.
So everybody, why are you running out of the movie, dude? I like sitting to the very end of the credit because sometimes, oh look, there's my uncle's name or something like you never know whose name you're gonna see.
So the other thing,
Go ahead.
I always give 3 points whenever I get advice to new actors. The other thing that I like to tell people is something that I've always stood by is don't chase fame.
Wow,
Change. You, you can't choose fame. Fame chooses you.
you're correct.
You
I
know.
I never thought don't it's that don't ever expect because then you'll never be disappointed. And well, I expected it. Sorry, you got disappointed.
Yeah.
If I do some casting submissions, I really don't expect to get cast for the role. I like to get that congratulations, you've been booked.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Don't ever go into it thinking that you're going to land that role. Oh man, I was so great. I was the well, I must have sucked because they liked somebody else or so. I'm just that's what don't but don't chase fame. I like that.
And then the other thing is if you're doing it for fame and not doing it again, going back to the artistry, if you're in the business trying to just be famous and not to be an actor and not to be like having the acolytes of somebody coming up and patting you on the shoulder, hey man, you're a really good actor. It's not a business for you. It's gonna eat you up and spit you out.
That's great. That's why I love doing this show. Just to listen to other people's ideas and I learned something. I never said I may what I tell people, I'm older than most and younger than some. And fortunately, in my latter years, things I never expected to be an actor. What do I want to? At 6 years old, in my little autographed slam book they used to have, back when I was growing up. Um, we did have the wheel invented by then, and in it, that was sixth grade. It said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like a cameraman. In sixth
Interesting.
grade, where would you come? Neurosurgeon, doctor, fireman, police officer, sanitation engineer, husband. I don't, whatever. It was like cameraman. Well, I was, but I never thought that would ever turn into acting. You don't ever say, I want to be an actor.
Yeah.
Well, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. I can see people being more of a singer than an actor. More people can sing than they can act. But you never know, and the timing is different for everyone. So here it is, where people like, wow, man, I think that's great that later in life you found something, or it found me. I didn't find
Yeah.
acting.
So
And the same.
my yearbook said that I wanted to be a professional rapper. So I used to be a rapper when I was in high school.
And how
I
did
don't
that go for you?
I don't know if you remember the jazz blues singer Taj Mahal, but
Yeah, I got their album.
yes,
What are you crazy?
Uncle Taji. I grew up with Uncle Taji, and his son was a rapper in our group on Mahal, which is Amarian Star now. And then Buffy St. Marie, which is a Native American
Right.
60s and 70s. Her son, Cody Wolfchild, was my best friend growing up. So we had a rap group in the island of Kauai. So we rapped professionally when I was a kid. So that's what I did for part of my youth, was being a professional rapper until my junior year in high school. And I'm in Japanese class, and our teacher and invited an actor to come and hang out in our class, and it was Kerry Togogawa from Mortal Kombat, Shang Tsung. And he comes to our school and talks to our class, and I see this 6 foot tall Japanese Asian man that's this huge actor taking his time to come talk to our class, and it was just, I don't know, it was an experience that it literally changed my life. I ended up running into him again at Kukui Grove Mall in Kauai. It's like, hey, I switched high schools. Would you come talk to my class? He came to the other high school, brought some blood in, blood out hats. I'm sorry, not blood in, blood out, American Me hats. And yeah, and I always grew up, because I grew up partially here in Texas and then in Hawaii. I always grew up, loving and idolizing off Chicano films like Blood in, Blood Out, and American Me, La Vida Loca. So having somebody like that come into my life at such a young age was such a inspiring, defining moment.
The stuff that I learned on this show. This is why I do it. It's people are not, well, people that I didn't say everyone. I said there are people who don't care about people. They don't give a baboon's butt about you, the way you grew up or the way this. People don't care, but there are a lot of people who do care.
Yeah.
And we need more of those people. And just listening to that story, where would I ever hear this? How would I? I can't go. How would you ever find out this information unless you actually sit down and talk to somebody
True.
1,800 miles away?
Yeah,
You know,
and I just want to say thank you, first of all, for having me on the hot seat.
no,
And thanks to JJ. Shouts out to him. Shouts out to Marcus. I've been fortunate enough that the higher power has given me the ability to find these people in my circle right now that are good people. And going back to people that get comfortable with certain groups and certain filmmakers and stuff like that, it's important to have a good network circle, but it's also still important to remember you are your own brand. So at the end of the day, even though that you have great friend associates and great allies and great friends around you, you're still working on building your brand. So like being able to be clay and be moldable to whoever you have to work with is super important.
you have to, improvise, adapt, overcome. Hoorah.
Yes.
Adapt, improvise, overcome. It's whatever it is. That's what that's what it is. And some people are so stuck in their mold. I've had some conversations with people I've known for 40 years. I don't see them, and I kind of ran into them. And you know what? In the 40 years that I've known you, you haven't changed. You're stuck in your own way. You don't care about anybody else's thought. And if they didn't agree with what you had to say, you got not you got indignant, not arrogant. You got indignant, not willing to listen to somebody else's side of the story. And I wasn't, and I was just stating fact and my point of view. but the response, well, you don't understand. Oh, believe me, I understand a lot better than you think I understand.
Well, I think
What?
that's the difference between the bifocal perception and the panoramic perception, right?
Yeah, blinders, people have blinders on and they don't want to know. It's almost like the Tommy syndrome. Well, Tommy had no choice, but some people become Tommy, and I'm not making any offense to any people with disability. Okay. That's my disclaimer. But people who don't have it create their own that they don't want to hear it, which is so wrong.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, well, look, I don't want to talk politics. Well, yeah, look, I don't want to talk politics with you because
yeah.
it's only going to lead into me saying something that you're not going to like. You're going to get butthurt. And then you're going to, you know what? I'm a very non-confrontational person. Just the hands come up. I don't want to be,
So
um,
somebody had made a statement to me the other day, and I would like to think that I'm an intelligent person, and they were like, we were talking about political something, and I was just like, it's like, well, ignorance is bliss. And I said, I sometimes think to myself, and it's just like, man, like, how can people just be so naive or choose to be like in this world where like Taylor Swift is the object of the day, and that's the most important thing when all these horrible things are happening around the world. And they were like, well, the reality of that is ignorance is bliss because being knowledgeable is painful. And I froze for a second because it really put into perspective the actual terminology of ignorance being bliss. And I was just like, man, that makes so much more sense because the fact that I have so much more understanding of life than other people, that now my perception has made me almost too sensitive to other people's feelings, to where now I look at things as a black and white, and it's kind of went to the reverse effect of the mind. And I never ever thought of it in that aspect until that person had kind of opened my mind in a different retrospect of learning.
if all your life revolves around following famous people, oh, did you see what I really don't care what I don't give a baboon's butt about. I like Taylor Swift. I really don't listen to her music, but as a person, as a businesswoman, people need to maybe, young women need to use her more as a role model
Yeah.
and emulate her success.
Yes.
Golly, don't tear the girl down. You know what? Never be jealous. I've never been jealous of
But it's not so
anybody.
much of the jealousy aspect of it, in the aspect of saying that like that's the daily strategy of their normal 9 to 5. But what I mean by that is like the mindset behind their everyday activities is so narrow that the only focus that they have is the small little things that happen in the world, and not the
Yes.
grand scheme of you know babies getting killed in other countries, or to this day we still have slavery in other countries nobody talks about, things of that sort.
You're right because people choose not they choose not to get involved or what they used to call, carry your knowledge in your back pocket.
Yeah.
That's an old terminology in there. But if that's all, and that it deals with being superficial, and oh, did you see what P Diddy? Well, I don't know what he did. If he did what he did, he deserves what he deserves, and the rich and the Hollywood and the famous that tell people what to do. But if you and what the evil that they possibly have been doing that we don't know about, that's been hushed up, the whole thing with Corey Feldman and what went on. Nobody believed Corey Feldman. And then all of a sudden, wow, Corey Feldman was right. So,
Yeah.
and it's like, watch TMZ. Who cares? I don't care
Yeah.
who's wearing a fur coat and no underwear. You know what I mean? I really don't care about that. But some people are they don't want to know, like I said, any world information. There's
But
stuff
I think
going
a lot of that
on.
down to uneducation because it's fear. It always boils down to fear, and people are always afraid of what they don't understand. And like I give my advantage to a lot of people is that I've traveled. I've been to other countries. I've been
So have
in
I.
other worlds like where it really teaches you as an American how spoiled we truly are.
Unbelievable. If you don't like, oh, if so and so gets elected, I'm moving. Oh, it's going to be better in Venezuela. It's going to be why go move to Iraq. Oh, I won't go there. They hate women. Well, women hate women here. Riley Gaines. Oh my God, they tortured her and they put her through so much garbage. And there we go. And they talk about oh, women this and women's right, but women are not standing up for other women.
No.
I
But
would stand up for
but,
more
I
women than
mean,
I would to
that
stand up
boils
for more
down to
men.
the theory, right? Women don't like competition,
God,
and they don't see men as competition. So that's where I think that's where that kind of falls short.
yeah,
What kills me about that is 100 years of oppression to come to where we are now, and it's just like fell to the wayside to social media and TikTok.
you can't support these women. When you said women don't see men as competition, well, these women who are physically competing against men and getting their butts kicked and
Yeah.
injured, which they're bringing up, and nobody's saying a word about that because, oh, but there's only two freaking genders. I'm sorry. Okay, that's my rant for the day. But remember, I told you I was going to rant on something. But you know
Yeah.
what?
No,
We'll save that.
it is what it is. Unfortunately, like I always laugh, because we I'm one of those Mandela people where I remember things a certain way. And I'm not gonna change the way that I think because you're telling me that it was magic mirror on the wall when 110% remember it was mirror mirror on the wall.
Yeah.
And it's just I feel that we literally have been pushed to a different time space continuum to a sense, because it's not where I came from. I know that for sure.
No, the world is changing. That was great. I'm glad we kind of went off a little bit like that because you have to discuss, you kind of got to keep it real. If we just sat around and talked about your acting, and which we will, we're going to be wrapping up here. But, to listen to you as a person, though, is something that we need to know without totally, offending anybody, but we're talking about what's going on. And if we can't talk about what's going on in the world today, again, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And
Right? And that person texts you and they're telling you you love them and you don't text them back right away, there's going to be a problem. So the importance level of that text is super important. So then therefore, if you don't text somebody back, you're not that important. And
That's a
it's it's black and white. It's very simple, but at the same token, I always look at an aspect too is what generation are you from? Because that makes a difference as well. Because I come from a generation where we had landlines and pagers, and we had to find a phone to text you back. So, or you didn't, you got to get home, hear your voicemail messages on your phone, and then finally
you
call them.
you were excited to get home to see who called you, or you
Yes.
kept on every when you had availability to a phone, you were always calling your voice recorder to see who called you so you could call them back. You were excited, kind of like your dog when you come home, he's excited to see you. Everybody is on the cell phone and sitting, and they're probably sitting next to each other texting each other because they're not talking. That was a school thing when I was a chaperone. 50 kids all texting, probably in a group chat, sitting next to each. That was insane.
Well, I guess it's better than our generation of passing notes and getting caught and the teacher reading your note in class.
Well, I'm a boomer. That's what my son, boomer. You know what? If you only knew to grow up when I grew up, you
I came
just
up in that cross generation. I was right at the end of that. So like I saw a lot of things, and then I also grew up in a very old school family. My mom was 10 years older than my father. So it was coming home to doo-wop and her vacuuming the floor because she was a housewife.
and her hair in big roller.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Smelling like rotten eggs all in your house.
oh, I love it. You're great. This, and this is why I do the show, because now I'm cheering up. My good thing I
Well,
use
you
waterproof.
you remember getting in the car back in the old days because there were so many 8 tracks, you literally had to, like, scoot to the edge of the
Yeah,
seat to
there was a
keep.
suitcase full of 8 tracks.
Yeah.
You need to sit in the back because I can't open up the suitcase of 8 tracks. So,
Yeah, the kids nowadays have no idea how easy it is for them.
8 track. There were some that they were going retro. People were buying 8 tracks to install in their car because they was like that was like so cool going retro 50 years, like, oh look, I'm wearing bell bottoms. Yeah. And oh well, you're in a costume. You're not real. You're in a costume. So KeeKee, what upcoming projects? You said you're working on a couple of projects now. Fill us
So,
back
the
in.
current project I'm working on at the moment is called Dog's Life, by Not So Sane Entertainment and Brett Mauser production. Uh I've worked on 5 films with this company, and then right in the middle of April, I'm going to take off to Vegas. I'm shooting with Sean Phillips. He's doing Skate to Hell. I'm doing a small cameo for that. Then I'll come back to San Antonio. I have 2 westerns that I'll be working on this summer. So yeah, I've got a pretty busy schedule for the beginning part of the summer, but I'm one of those people that I really try to organize and pre-prep. Oh, I also want to mention we're also doing King of the South here in San Antonio. Uh, Gabriel Cordona. That's his production, and that should be a really nice film because it's a really good story about Aslan and the Chicano culture and the kings of the South basically fighting for the territory. So it's a nice little film that he's doing. He's got Grammy nominated Little Joe will be in that. I'll be doing a scene with Vic Trevino from Cheetah from American Me. He'll be in that film as well. So yeah, it's been good. It's been pretty busy. I've been last year. I think we did almost 9 productions last year. So those are full features.
And I saw you were keeping busy. And I think that's great. It's all about keeping busy. It keeps your head where it's at. And for somebody that I've never met, we Facebook friend through, JJ and really through JJ. And then, like I said, he forced you upon me.
No, 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 no force. It's a pleasure. Please, thank you.
Yeah. And and he has somebody else. And and again, that's what impresses me, that you're a group from another state, another city, um, that I happen to have stayed in at that point, and look where it came to, and the interest that you all are showing to be on the show. This
Yeah,
is not worldwide syndicated. It goes on YouTube. I post it on my channel. You share it. I'll edit it. I'll cut it up. The full. You gotta. I tell people, if you can't watch this show and you're in your car, listen to it,
yeah.
because it's like anything else. They're like, "Oh, is it a podcast?" Well, I consider a podcast is just an audio show. Sometimes I listen to them, sometimes I don't. I like watching other people's podcasts. I learn to see what they do. But listen to the show, because it's actually more interesting than watching us. Okay, you see us and we go back and forth, but just the content of what we're saying and how it flows. I listen to my shows just to see what they sound like. Of course, I'm editing it for 3 or 4 hours, and I'm watching it, and I'm watching the same segment go by and by. And it's like, wow, that was some pretty funny stuff. But I tell you, having you on was a pleasure.
Oh well, thank you. It's a pleasure as well. Thanks for
Yeah.
having.
Kind of like a box of chocolate. You just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah,
You really don't. And, listening to you and some of the things that, you have shared is stuff that will stick with me. So it
appreciate that.
makes me a better person. I was always a nice person, but I changed. I guess that comes with age, where you just kind of don't let a lot of things bother you. But I listen to what a lot of people say, and I've listened to what a lot of older people say. A lot of veterans that, it's like they come up with stuff. If you ever want to listen to a veteran, I'm not interested in their stories, and I like war history.
Yeah,
The killing part is collateral damage, with it. But if you listen to them and their philosophy about life and what they went through to survive and get to the point where they're at, is something that I take with me, that changes me in some certain ways. And listening to what had to say on the show, it's listening to other people's ideas and philosophies, which is very important, that a lot of people don't do. So it's great that you could say the things you do and touch people with that. Which
I appreciate it. And
yeah,
I always my if I can be is on. Okay, so Bruce Lee was always one of my. I wouldn't say I've never really had idols growing up. I admired certain people for certain things, but back to Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee had always had one philosophy, and his philosophy was the hardest thing for a person to do is to look themselves in the mirror and be completely honest with themselves, what they see, what they say, and how they feel. because most people within 2 seconds will turn away from the mirror and look away from what they don't like, what they're seeing or feeling, or or what they've done. So I always look at that, and I just want to be as honest as I can as a person when I'm being around people, because it feel that honesty can create that harmony.
I read that, and I do read some of his sayings that that he has. There's Bruce Lee, and then he has something underneath, which, if you listen to what he says, is like, wow, where did he come up with that? How, and listen to it, and when you can give people and they feel that honesty, that you can tell somebody the God's honest truth, and they won't believe you because they can't believe that you're telling them the truth, because people have lied to them. Have I lied? Yes, I have lied to people.
Mhm.
It kind of
We
like
all
screwed
have, but
me
the
up.
thing is learning,
and
discovering.
and, and I learned from it. And when you tell people the truth, they don't believe you, but you can't convince them. And the more you try to convince them, you're just in a losing battle there. So,
Yeah.
but
But for me, it's not even about convincing. It's just about not creating skeletons to hide my closet.
yeah,
My lies
you
being
don't
told.
ever you never try to convince people what you're doing. Well, okay, you don't believe me? Fine. How about if I lie to you? You'll believe me then.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. It's like when people say, I'm going to be completely honest with you. No, lie to me like everybody else. What do you mean? So are you setting me up to believe you're going to be honest, or what are you trying to do here? I'm not quite sure. But on that note, KeeKee, an amazing interview. We will be posting all your information, your film clips at the end here. You can
Well,
reach
thank you
out
so
to
much.
us.
And
Yeah.
everybody out there, all the Floridians out there, check out my boy Greg Cordone in the hot seat. He is live and direct. You need to tune in to all his broadcasts and all his shows, and he will be posting these on YouTube and on Facebook and all his social media sites.
I love it. You know what? I'm going to use you as my spokesperson. How's that? You just start sending me some tapes here, and we're going to have to tape that after the show, because I want to take. Here, I'm going to take you full screen on that, and then we're going to. Dude, this is what I do. Just kind of flow with it. If you want to be on the hot seat, like my man KeeKee here, all the way from San Antonio, please drop us a line at the hot seat 813@gmail.com. I want to be on your show. You want to sponsor my show? You want to advertise on my show? If you have a business that needs help, we can help you. It's been a beautiful day for an interview, and I'm so glad you were my guest. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And as we say in Hawaii, aloha.
Shaka, bra. Good night.
Is he?
In truth, none of these lands belong to any of us. Everything belongs to him in the end.
You would have made a good shaman. It's too bad you're so pale.
What are you looking for?
Guns. I want guns.
Well now,
Guns are illegal, and if we knew where to find them or how to get them, it's going to cost you. And if you want them green, it's going to cost you even more.
You saw the owl man then?
Owl man?
Shiri. Stigini.
I just put feathers on to mess with you just a little bit. I can't believe you remember that. You were so high.
Buck's at the end of his rope and all, chasing Andrews. But he's sure not gonna let no woman take him into Indian territory. He's got more sense than that.
I really don't care if you believe me. Do you have a room available?
Sure. Would you like it for the day? For the hour? I get a cut no matter what. We need another month or so before they're ready to see the real world.
I've sent a team of last generation girls to Texas. If they fail, I need another team ready to go.
That's impossible, sir.
Then make it possible.